Hey guys, we're back. We've been talking with director, writer, producer Crystle Roberson. We've been having a riveting conversation, and of course, Instagram cut us off after 1 hour. So we just want to finish our thoughts. Let us know where you are watching from. Crystle is about to join back in the chat in just a moment. And we've been talking about film, we've been talking about protesting, we've been talking about just the state of the world. So I really thank you so much for joining us. Hello, Lester. Crystle's going to come back in just a second. For anybody seeing this, which is part two, Crystle is a director and a friend of mine. We went to college together at Valdosta State, and she has directed shows and films like Greenleaf, Ambitions, American Soul, and Black Girl's Guide to Fertility. And she's joining us back right now so we can just finish that we were having together. So we were speaking specifically just about mental health, and we're back. We're speaking specifically about mental health, and I wanted to continue with what you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, if we treated racism like a serious mental health issue that required therapy, that required working through. I was watching a teacher online the other day. I don't know if you're familiar. Jane Elliott, because
I love Jane Elliott.
To me about her.
Yes.
Could you imagine the way that Jane Elliott works with kids like that psychologically on racism? Could you imagine that type of curriculum being taught across the nation?
I mean, the thing is, I can't, and I wish that I could, and I think that's a dream, and I think that that is possible. But we are in the middle of breaking down walls right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the first step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the conversation is the second step, and the listening is the part of that second step.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. It's good to hear from your side that there are a lot of people questioning their own, because, you know, I saw this post the other day. It was like, treat racism like you treat COVID-19. Assume you have it. Like, there was holding the sign. He was like, assume you have it, go quarantine and deal with it within yourself.
It's not funny, but it's funny. That is, that's and let me tell you, that's why I haven't done the shows the last week, because I'm like, what do I have to say right now as a white person who's half Hispanic that anyone wants to listen to? Fucking nothing.
No, so I want to know. I want to know, you know, the things that you've been saying have been enlightening to me, because it baffles me how white people process racism. I know from my side how Black people process it and how painful it is for us. But I don't know from your side, you know, what it even looks like or feels like.
It feels like guilt. It feels like confusion. It feels like I'm angry that I haven't done more, even though I have Black friends and love them, and have Hispanic friends and friends of all backgrounds. That's how I was raised. I was raised in a very diverse way. My mom was a Spanish and French teacher, and her best friend was a lesbian from Brazil, and she had her own community of gay and lesbian folks and people of all colors. I mean, even things like saying I felt even racist the other day saying my first best friend was Black.
Why did you feel?
I don't know. I felt like, is this how you identify a human being that you care about? But it's also the truth, meaning at a young age, when my grandmother was using the N-word and I knew it was wrong, guess what that made me want to do? Be friends with all the Black people. Because I was like, fuck you. Like, this doesn't feel right. And in school, I was like the weirdo outcast girl. I mean, you met me in college, but in my grade school years, the only group of people that I felt like embraced me and my weirdness was the Black community. Period.
So let me ask you this. Because I always wondered this, and I've never been able to ask a white person this.
Oh, yeah. Tell me. I'm not afraid of anything.
Was there a part of you that, because, I mean, you said about your grandmother, who used the N-word. You love your grandmother. You love her, right? And was
I
there
did.
a part of you that felt like going against that ideal that she had about Black people meant that you loved her any less? Or was admitting to yourself that racism is wrong, does that then does that cause some sort of emotional rift between you and your parents or you and your
Yeah.
grandparents that you may not be ready to
Yeah.
accept? Because you know what I mean? Because it's like they're still your parents and you want to love them and you want to believe that they're good people and all this type of stuff. So then when that issue comes up, what does that do
Okay.
to
Well,
your
first of all, I appreciate that question. Like I said, when I was a young kid and heard my grandmother say the N word and tell stories of Black people in the South, in North Carolina, specifically in the mountains,
Mhm.
the so and so went to go get my mail, this, that, and that. It was always just weird to me. It was very
Mhm.
uncomfortable. I mean, let me tell you something. My mother married a Hispanic man. My
Mhm.
dad was born in Mexico City, raised in Spain. My entire side of my dad's family is from Spain, and from my great grandfather was the dresser to the King of Spain from Italy.
Nice.
Yeah, my grandfather was the most famous bullfight manager in all of Mexico and Spain. Um, my mom went against my own grandmother's racism, her
Mhm.
mother, by
Mhm.
marrying a Hispanic man. My parents ran away and got married at Justice for the Peace. My grandma didn't want anything to do with them. It didn't
Mhm.
care if you were black, brown, purple, gray.
Mhm.
She just
Mhm.
wasn't having it,
Right. Yeah.
And so I always had a love-hate relationship with her because she adored me, but I hated her hate. I
Mm,
hated her fucking hate.
mm,
And
mm,
it's weird. It's so, I love that you asked me that question because I've been thinking about that all day. And it's like you're reading my mind. And I was thinking about how she was and why I was always so mad at my grandmother because it's not a conversation we ever had.
mhm,
I never understood. And I had
mhm,
Black friends over. And interestingly enough, I think the only reason she accepted my one Black friend is I think I was 6. Um, I was very young. And she was my closest friend. So I would hang out with this person all the time. I
mhm,
think probably one of the only reasons she accepted her is because they're a very wealthy family, a very wealthy Black family in the music business in Atlanta in
mhm,
the 90s and the late 80s, excuse me, late 80s, early 90s. And I mean, this is an assumption, but she didn't treat my friend the way she spoke about Black people behind their backs.
mhm.
And that was always like shocking to me. And it's not like she
Yeah,
would go on with a dissertation about how she hated Black people. You have to understand that just
yeah,
because someone's racist doesn't mean they're always going
yeah,
around
yeah.
spitting this and that. It's like in their blood that they don't realize that a word is so powerful. And so
Mhm,
that's what I watched with her is I watched her say a word that was so powerful, not all the time, but when she said it, you realize that it was in the blood of how she was raised. And
yeah,
I don't even know if
yeah,
she was aware because it was the time. And I'm not saying
yeah,
that's an excuse. I'm just telling you that's how my white grandmother from the South was raised. And it wasn't okay. And I knew that. I knew that the first time I ever heard her say the N word, I knew that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah, and see, and the thing is, your mother
my mom
rebelled,
gets that.
and just imagine though if your mother had not rebelled and she just sort of accepted or whatever that what your grandmother was saying or the same sort of attitude about it, how would you be different? Maybe you would have been the one to rebel or maybe not. And I think a lot of people, you know I think a lot of people are stuck in that cycle. Everyone's not strong enough to rebel against their family and say, no, fuck that, that's wrong. And I know I'm the only one who feels that way here. But no, I don't think a lot of people are strong enough to do that.
And they don't, and that's where this all goes back, Crystal, to mental health.
Mhm,
And I mean, even as a white person who struggled with depression at a young age, I went to charter at the age of 14 because I was having screaming matches with my mother, when years later I realized through therapy that it was that I hated my father because he left when I was 2. And you know what's fucked up? My dad's an immigrant and he voted for Trump, and he's Hispanic. So it's the layers of people's
I
stories.
cannot understand that.
You see what I'm saying? I can't either. The
Okay.
layers of people's stories are so intricate that we can't just slap on a formula for how we're going to get through this.
Yeah.
This is why listening and telling stories, sharing Black stories, sharing white stories, sharing stories of oppression, sharing stories of growing up in households where you can't speak because maybe you'll get slapped or abused, you
Yeah.
know? I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many layers. And, you know,
Yeah.
there's a conservative woman, and I wanted to talk to you about this. This is very controversial, what I'm about to ask you. Her name, and I'm sure you're familiar with her, is Candace Owens. She is a Black conservative and a Trump political activist.
Okay.
And she made a statement the other day, and it shook me because I didn't know how to react to this. She said, look, I am for Black people. I am a Black person. And I'm taking this out of context. I'm not quoting her. But she basically said, you know, don't glorify George Floyd. He was like a criminal for years. It is horrific what they did to him. They should not have killed him. They should not have done that. They need to get justice for him, but don't glorify him as if he was, you know, and I'm taking this out of context, as if he was like Martin Luther King or something. And, you know, it's like to me, it's like she's completely missing the point. Criminal or not, you don't kill a man by putting your knee on their neck, period.
Right.
Black,
Yeah.
white, orange, blue, you don't do it. And specifically, Black people, it's 400 years of too much.
Right.
And I'm not going to
Yeah.
speak for the Black community, but I'm watching my friends who are Black, all the hurt and all the things that they've been shoving down for years. That's what's making me cry. That's what's making me emotional, is watching it come up and see how many of my friends who communicate with me, who are honest with me, still have been hiding things from me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't see it as anyone trying to act like George Floyd is an angel or was an angel on earth. I think that, you know, this his murder seemed to be the one that finally opened so many eyes, and he was a martyr for that.
Yeah.
And that martyrdom that I think people celebrate.
But she said, don't make him a martyr. And it was so volatile.
Any sense.
It
Yeah.
doesn't
He
make any
died.
sense.
He's an obvious martyr.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just, as a Black person, hearing another Black woman say that, as an American conservative political activist, her saying that and taking that stance, how does that make you feel? Because to me, as a white person watching it, was like, whoa, wait a minute. Is she right? Is she not right? What side do I go on? I don't know what to do. Like, fuck these sides. Like, I just want to hug.
Yeah.
Like, I was so overwhelmed, but I feel like I
Yeah.
have to watch everything right now, not to decide if I'm racist or not. I'm not racist, but I've grown up in a way that, you know, no matter what I feel or say, I'm still going to get by.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
And my friends may not.
And I mean, that's why it's very important for Black people to I mean, you can't help it. People have freedom of speech. They're going to say what they want to say. They're going to have different attitudes. But like when Black people speak out against other Black people, it causes confusion.
Yeah.
And it's very counterproductive. I think that, like, I heard about this instance with the actor Terry Crews, who went on Twitter and said something about like Black supremacy, saying that for us to be too careful about too much protesting or too much something because we don't want to influence Black supremacy. And people were like, what are you talking about? And then the white supremacists like chimed in like, yeah, this is how we feel, and we stand by Terry Crews on that statement. And it just completely, you know,
There's so many layers.
so, you know, there's stuff like that. There's like people like her, and, you know, when people like him, honestly, listen, this is a really touchy subject. and it goes back 400 years. It's really complex. It's not just like, oh, it's this or that.
Exactly.
So making any sort of remark, you have to be really careful about the confusion that it could spark, or the progress that it could take back, you
So,
know?
so 100%. So on that note, can we have a dear white people moment with you?
Oh, sure. Okay.
What would you like white people to know? Because the reason why I'm asking is because something I'm already seeing. I even got in an argument with a friend today. And I'm not going to discuss that because I know that she's been watching, and I don't want to oust anybody about anything. I thought she was saying something that she wasn't necessarily saying, but it was how she said it that offended me. And, everyone all of a sudden, at least what I'm noticing when it comes to white friends, they all of a sudden are Black activists and educators because they're retweeting and reposting, you know, and it's very hard to see because some of my friends that are white that have not spoken yet are just so heartbroken by what's happening, and they don't have a loud voice like me, that they're kind of like waiting for a minute to figure out what to say, and people are attacking them
For
because
nothing.
for not saying anything. And there's a lot of bullying going on when I know that these specific friends personally are donating privately. They're just not, it's not that they're not saying anything. They're physically giving their money and doing things, you know, but other people are seeing that they're maybe not doing as much, that other white people are bullying other white people. And the friend said something to me today, and I was just like, I've been supporting Black businesses for a long time. And that's not because I'm supposed to be supporting Black businesses. I have Black friends that have businesses, if we're really going to just like break it down, right? My
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood in Brooklyn is predominantly Black and mixed races. I am the minority there, and I'm the one who gentrified it. So, fuck me. I'm an asshole too, I guess. But, I'm also not rich, and I have to live in a place where I can afford rent, right? So there's so many layers. So I guess my question to you is, you want to have allies. I kind of hate that word. I just want to be friends with everybody. I think ally, there's a lot of responsibility with the word ally.
Mm-hmm.
And for
There
me,
is.
you have to be careful how you represent. That's why I took a week off. And that's why you're my first show back. Well, I had already had you planned, but you were my first show back because this is such a important topic, and I'm happy to be able to talk about it with you. But I guess my question is, what do you have to say to white people who are being activists, but then shoving it down their friends' throats and not giving them a minute to figure out how to process? Because my friend basically said something to me today that I already know. And it was like, look, just because you're fired up going to protest all of a sudden and you're realizing your privilege and your whiteness doesn't mean you need to like say the things that you said to me as if I don't know. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be very careful, even in the white community,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that you're not badgering other people so we can all come together to support our Black friends.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because like once the you pull the thread that unravels everything, once you pick up the rug and shake it, once you shake the tree, this is the moment where all the shit is flying everywhere.
Yeah.
So there's really no like rhyme or reason, or like I don't expect everyone, on Black or white or in anyone, to know specifically how to handle what's happening right now, because for a lot of people it's their eyes just flung open.
Which is sad.
One of my favorite, but it is what it is.
I'm embarrassed. I'm
Yeah,
embarrassed.
yeah, and I mean,
That's how I feel.
glad you are. I'm glad you are. I think that's a natural way to feel. If you have any sort of heart or any sort of compassion, you'll be embarrassed by something like that. But like one of my favorite authors said that you know don't be fooled by, like, don't judge a man on after he's come out of darkness into this bright room, our pupils take a moment to adjust to this bright light. And vice versa. You walk out of a bright room into darkness, you can't see anything until your eyes get acclimated. So right now, that's what's happening to a lot of people. They're stepping out of the darkness into this like, oh shit, okay, realization, and they're having to take time to adjust in their own way. And nobody can say what anybody else should be, how anyone else should be going about the process. It's the same with Black people when someone does get killed by the police, and there are those of us who that shit hurts too much for me to even acknowledge it right now. I have so much going on in my life that, like, if I stop to do that, I will get depressed and let everything fall through the cracks. Like, so there are people who then say, well, you should be speaking out and you should be saying this because this is going to keep happening. And who are you to take time out for yourself when we have so much to fight for in the streets and blah, blah, blah. Some people say you should be out protesting. It just is what it is. Every single person is dealing with this within themselves in the way that they deal with it. If it's meant for you to go into a dark room and face your own racism for 10 days and not speak to anyone, that to me is better than the person who runs to social media to immediately look like they got it all figured out.
There's definitely, yes, I know what you mean. I mean, there's definitely a part of me.
The person who's in the dark crying, facing their own racism, that person is doing the work that we need them to do. Not the person who's going to be posting shit this week and then be off to something else next week and not making any real inner changes.
Totally. I really appreciate that because there has been a lot of pressure, not on me because I'm outspoken. So as soon as everything happened with Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd, I made a statement on my Instagram a few days after in disgust of what happened. And I get fired up, and when I see someone hurt and pain and just it's so different this time than any other protest, It's so different. And we're listening more because guess what? We're all at home. There's no distraction. And I honestly think that is why we all, as a group of at least the people who are trying to make the world a better place, are, so overwhelmed in a way that, like, it's a lot of us throwing spaghetti at the wall going, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta repent, I gotta talk about my guilt, I gotta talk about that. That's how I get shit out, but not everybody gets shit out like that. And for me, I know two things. I know how to cook for people and make them happy through food, and I know how to have conversations with people that are difficult because I'm a Leo and I confront shit because I can't go to bed feeling like shit. And let me tell you what, I have not been able to sleep, and this is not a trending post. This is not something I'm passionate about helping for only 1 week. And it's funny because I felt my whole life there's a revolution coming and I didn't know what it was. And I've always challenged authority in my own way and gotten in a lot of trouble in my life. But nothing like a Black person has. Nothing. I have so much privilege. I am so grateful to not have to deal with that kind of abuse every day. And I think this has illuminated how terrible my friends have been treated for so long. And seeing everyone come together, even though I can't be on the front lines protesting because I have a physical disability, I can't run because of my sciatica. So if someone was shooting at me, I couldn't run. And also my mom is going into surgery. So look, I don't have any money. I'm on freaking unemployment right now. And I've been giving money here and there, but I haven't been taunting about it. Like, oh, look, I just donated $5 to this and $5 to that. but I am using this platform to raise money
Mm-hmm.
for different people because that's what I can do. And I'm not doing that because I feel guilty. I'm doing that because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think change doesn't have one specific look. It has a lot of looks. The
Yeah.
revolution doesn't look like a specific thing. I think it looks like a tons of different tiny actions and big actions. And we can't really say, well, this is what it's supposed to look like, or this is what everyone's supposed to be doing. I think everything happening is just happening the way that it's going to happen. The fires that were happening last week, the everything, every part of it, the looting, the protesting, the peaceful protests, as well as the non-peaceful protests. It's like I said, when you rip that rug up and there's so much shit under the rug that's been swept under there for so many years, there's going to be a moment where everything is just going all over the place and being exposed. There's no control way to control how people are going to process it or what people are going to do. They got to do it in their own way.
And there's going to be a lot of relationships broken and a lot of new relationships made and strengthened. And I luckily haven't had any issues with anybody until today. And I think it was a case of misinterpretation, but I wanted to point out to that person that it wasn't necessarily what that person said, it was how they said it. And I think we really have to be careful more than anything because we're all going to make mistakes in this fight for equality. We have to be careful about our tone. And I have a tonality issue sometimes. I'm very aggressive. But I'm also very sensitive and I'm very caring and I don't want to hurt anybody, and we just have to be careful of our tone. That's all I really know what to say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
And
sure.
my,
We
yeah.
also have to, I just saw a comment from Brandy where she's like, use your gifts and talents to, fight the movement. And like, as a filmmaker right now, as a writer, I've been writing a project, that does deal with this, and this entire thing has helped with that project.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you remember, like back in like the early 90s, there was a movie with Michael Douglas called Falling Down. But anyway, probably not supposed to say stuff, too much about it, but there are certain movies that have been made in the past that if you take that character and make that character Black, it's a whole other world for the Black person because of the way that they face America and of the way that America faces a Black person. And now that I just feel really good that everything's starting to be exposed. People are starting to look in the mirror, that type of stuff. The revolution is not like, I mean, Gil Scott-Heron said it, the revolution will not be televised. And what he meant by that was that the revolution starts in here for people. It starts in those dark rooms where you can't sleep at night and you're thinking things. That's where the revolution really is. It's not always out for everybody to see. That part of the revolution is important too. Every part is, but we can't discount the quiet, dark parts because that's where the real change happens most of the time.
And I think it's like kind of what you said, how Black people specifically have been holding it in forever. The real shit they want to say to people and
Mm-hmm.
haven't been able to say it because no one was listening. So what is different now that people are listening?
Like I said, it gives us, for me anyway, I speak for myself. After, it seemed like to me for a moment in time, there was a Black man killed by police or by white people every week in the news. I heard about it every week. And like I said, after a while, it's so painful that you start to just push those feelings down so that you can live your life and pay your bills and not go crazy.
Yeah.
So when other people start to care, um when other people start to care, it feels like to me, okay, it might be okay for me to feel it this time. And that's just something, that's the least that we could do for Black people, is allow them
That's
to, like, you know what I mean? Because it's like
speaking up to an
you know,
abuser. Yeah.
talk about mental health, like that weighs on your mental health too, and your
Yeah.
ability to open up, your ability to be vulnerable, and your ability to love, you know, and all of that type of stuff. So dealing with that, we're walking around with that. And I mean, I have friends, like you said, racists don't just sit around talking about Black people all day or whatever. But I have my friends, sometimes we sit down at lunch and that's what we talk about. We talk about racism because that shit hurts. It hurts. And we spend a whole dinner talking about it. We'll spend a whole, and this is at any random moment, you know, nothing has to necessarily be happening in the world for us to feel that pain and need to talk about it. So it affects our lives in a big way. And I think that I'm like, okay, are we finally starting to understand just how much hundreds and hundreds of years, generations handed down to generations of this same pain affects people mentally, emotionally?
Totally. So I think the biggest question in a lot of ways is like, why George Floyd? Why not Ahmaud Arbery a few weeks before? What was it that took the whole world to finally stand up? Because people have been fucking terrified that work in the Trump administration, that had been fired. You know, there's so many politics, there's so much money at stake, so many brands are getting, like the guy from CrossFit, his racist comments, like he resigned as
Mm-hmm.
CEO. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, these are
Good.
massive changes. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, necessary, not questioning
Yeah.
those, but why George Floyd? Why not Ahmaud Arbery? Why not Breonna Taylor? Why not
Yeah.
someone before him? Why now? And it's not a question of, you know, it not being something necessary to be happening, but like,
I
why
understand
him?
what you're saying. I asked myself that same question. I was like, well, why him? Why haven't people, you know, been on this? But I honestly feel like it's two things. One, the taping of his death being so heartbreaking and so visually, like that 8 minutes or, you know, however long it
Yeah,
was that that knee was on his neck,
yeah,
and people being able to see that and witness it and feel it and know without a shadow of a doubt that shit was wrong. That's one thing. But the other factor is that it's just a matter of the straw that broke the camel's back. It's a matter of, if it wasn't him, it would have been the next person. And I think the fact that it, you know, it was a case of him not being able to breathe, and we've seen that before too. And other Black men who've been killed and who've said like, hey, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, you're killing me, and still
yeah.
proceed to get killed. I think it was that, it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And you know, Ahmaud Arbery was very painful, and it was, and I know that a lot of people felt, but it's like those men weren't cops.
They were
And
literally hunting. They were literally hunting.
mm-hmm,
That's the behavior in which these disgusting human beings were going for
yeah,
him.
yeah, and it's like those, they weren't cops. So then it's like, okay, well, where do we place our these all these like, where do we place this pain then? Where do we who do we run to say, who do we run to say, hey, this is wrong? When the cops are killing you, who do you run to? And you know, I think the fact that you die in the arms of, or by the hands of someone who's supposed to be protecting you, um,
Yeah.
it's just a whole other different thing, too. But like you said, I mean, it's not to say that any of the other situations were any less tragic or painful, But I just think it was a matter of the straw that broke the camel's back. People were really tired. Also, people have been quarantined. They've been
Yep.
facing themselves. They've been thinking differently about life anyway. And I think people are a lot more sensitive right now to life and the
Mhm.
importance of life and the importance of people and togetherness, and no longer taking for granted the simple things. um I think that has something to do with it too. So I think it just all ended up, aligning in a way that allowed change to start happening. But yeah, I mean, I asked myself the same question.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting that it's all happening right now. But I just hope that the changes keep happening, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm gonna just pray positivity and good vibes into it and hope that we continue to move toward a good place. I think
Yeah.
when it's like we have nowhere to go but up.
And I love that. And I really appreciate and respect your opinion. And, it's comforting to know that we are thinking the same things, and I don't want to think of it as sides. You said that a few times, your side, my side. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, that is the way it has been for many years. But, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't see color.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do see color.
Yeah. And
I
it's
have eyes.
when I say sides, I just mean perspective. I
I
can
know.
see things through the eyes of a Black woman, and you're seeing something different. And we deal with it in different spaces in that way.
100%, but I want to be on the side of humanity, and I want to be on the side with you, with empathy, and with growing in the film business together, going up the ladder. And someone made a comment, it was a Broadway star, about white people don't need black people. They don't need, they never, when do they need us? And how it was like black people needed white people on Broadway to get them there, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how disgusting and tainted Broadway is, and how racist Broadway is. And
Mm.
I was like, whoa. And I was thinking to myself, no, no, no. I got a lot of black friends doing a lot better than me. I do need them. Like, it's not, you know, I mean, in a selfish way, I'm saying that.
Yeah.
But I see so many of my friends doing like incredible things, and I'm going, I want to be a part of that. That
Mm-hmm.
has nothing to do with race. That has to do with the fact that they're creating incredible work. And that's why what you do is so amazing and inspiring. And it's exactly what you need to be doing. And you're telling stories. There's so many stories to be told. And coming out of this, someone also made a comment. There's some white person in Hollywood writing about their version of the protest and how unnecessary that probably is. And it's like, I'm going to be excited to listen to what Crystle Roberson's scripts are going to be about her perspective of seeing all of a sudden, oh, the white people showed up finally,
Yeah.
because I feel like that's how, and I'm not speaking for black people at all, but I feel like that is probably in a lot of ways how black people feel. Oh, well, you finally woke up. Thanks for
Mm-hmm.
joining, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah. It's
Am I
like,
right?
great. Join us, please. Like, that's what we need. And because it's a white issue and a Black burden. It's like, you know what I mean? So the only person who can fix it really is white people. If the issue is in here with that, I can't go in and change your mind. I can only make you aware of the pain that it's causing, and tell you that it's not right. But at the end of the day, it's the person, it's the racists, honestly, who have the power to change it. They're the only people. The racists are the only people who can change racism, who can eradicate racism. They are the only people who can do it. Everyone else can make them aware of how fucked up it is, but they're the ones who have the responsibility.
Correct. And when you get these massive corporations standing up, I honestly think that's one of the first steps, because they do have so much money, black or white corporations, whatever corporations they
Mm-hmm.
are. I mean, look at these people that are like getting fired and standing down. I mean, even Serena Williams's husband, he's decided to step down from Reddit so a black CEO can take over. That's incredible. That was his choice, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So
Mm.
it's not just racists that have to change it. It's the people in power.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the people in power. It's the politicians. And that is changing. Oh, it is changing. And let me tell you guys what, I'm going to tell you right to the camera. Vote Diana Richardson for Assemblywoman in District 43 in Brooklyn. Her office has not only helped me, but has helped community. She's been on the front lines. She's been protesting. I talked to her chief of staff the other day. She was pepper sprayed at a rally when she had her credentials on her. She's a powerful Black woman doing amazing things in the community of Brooklyn. And if you know anyone in Brooklyn, have them look up Diana Richardson. I'm hoping to have her on the show. But you know, they've been helping me. Like, who am I? They've been.
And yeah, you're right about that. The you know, there were a few people I saw the corporations post like, you know, well, we believe Black Lives Matter, blah blah blah. And I saw some Black people say, fuck that, show me how many Black people you hired this year, or show me like the
Totally.
real numbers, show me what you're really doing.
Oh yeah.
So like, yeah, you know, but at
I'm
the
not saying corporations are going to save us. Let's be clear. I'm very anti-establishment in a lot of ways,
mm-hmm.
but the ones that are good,
Yeah,
can help. Is all I'm saying.
and but at the same time, if they decide to hire more diverse, you know, diverse people, um and then you show up for that job, that new job that you have, because now, you know, and you're still face to face with these people who don't quite like you or don't quite feel like you deserve to be there. Guess what? It's still painful, it's still
Yeah.
agonizing, it's still like, fuck, okay, more opportunities were created, but I'm still faced with the same ugly mental like bullshit with these people. And you know, it's still not quite right. And there's like the core of it, you know, is what I'm talking about. But like, you definitely, I agree, like it, you know, there are way more people who can work on it, raise awareness about it, put certain people in positions, vote, and everything. But it's ultimately up to that person to change their own ideals in their heart, you
And
know.
it will take time, but we have blown the lid off of a massive, massive issue for
Mm-hmm.
the last 400 years. I think the lid has not come off. I think it has been blown off. And don't even get me started about police brutality, because I've always had issues with cops, and not in the way that Black people have, but I've had a cop come to my house recently about something that very personal happened to me, and he just like wasn't even listening to me. And he was, what's funny is he was my age and he looked like he was 20 years older, because I bet you his racist ass, you know, police department has aged him from all the stress, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I'm not saying that's bad or good or whatever. I'm just saying, like, this man wouldn't even listen to me to take my statement properly. And there was a woman standing right next to him, sort of like, you could tell she was more muted, but she wanted to say something.
Yeah.
And she just kept sort of looking at him and looking at me. And when I would say, I have a right to speak and I have a right to say it, and I'm not cutting you off, stop saying that I'm cutting you off. I have the freedom of speech. He kept saying I was cutting him off and I wasn't. And she just kept looking at me like she wanted to be like, yeah, girl, I got you, you
Yeah.
know? But she couldn't say anything. There's just so much suppression and oppression, but we've blown the lid off and you can't look away anymore. And that's the one good thing that the
Yeah.
pandemic has done.
Exposed. Yep. And that's the first step. You gotta admit that there's even a problem.
Yeah.
You know?
12-step program, girl. I'm drinking
Yeah.
water. Just kidding. I'm about to have a cocktail.
Yeah. But you know, yeah, but it's happening. I'm thankful.
Yeah.
And like, I pray that, like, because of all the lives that have been lost, I pray that, like, it's, you know, it continues, but so that their lives won't be in vain, that their deaths won't be in vain, you know.
And I think that's what, you know, I think white people, like you were saying, you know, everyone's getting on the bandwagon and getting on social media. And, you know, we're going to find out who's really real soon, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because it's exhausting. And if we're exhausted, imagine a Black person that's been facing this for generations and generations and generations. So every time I'm like, oh man, I'm tired of staring at my screen today, I'm not staring at my screen to post selfies right now. I'm staring at my screen to help make change. And it's fucking tiring, and it's going to be tiring. And
Mm-hmm.
we just have to, like, this is where we have to have the compassion for each other, whatever side you're on, whatever skin color you have. We have to have the compassion for each other to continue educating each other in a way that is kind and thoughtful without pointing fingers. And that's a hard thing to do when there's a lot of pain there, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And all I have to say is that, like, I appreciate you. I've appreciated you for years. I've never thought less of you. I've never thought I was more. I've always admired everything that you're doing, and I want to promote it and be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
I appreciate that. No, yeah, yeah. I mean, not, knowing how to talk to people, knowing how to say the things that you need to say to them without making them feel, without shutting them. It's really just about, it's not about how they'll feel, because they kind of need to feel something. To me, it's about, you got to keep their ears open, and you can't shut them completely off to what it is that you're saying, because then it's like, the person that you're trying to communicate with, it turns into a brick wall. So
yeah.
you have to know how to communicate and get your point across without shutting them completely down. But hopefully things are, we do have that compassion with each other, because I recognize, even though I make no excuses for racism, I grew up in the South. And I realized, like what I told you earlier, I realized that some people have grown up with their parents and their parents' parents and their parents' parents' parents who thought this way. And they're the ones who either have to show up and rebel against their entire family, or it might take them a little bit longer to do that. Maybe they'll do it later in life, or maybe they never will. And they'll pass it down to their children, and it'll be up to their children to do it.
Yeah, it's almost subconscious, and not that that's an excuse, but sometimes you, not me, but other people, I'm watching them tell me their stories, and I don't even think they realized it. I
Mm.
mean, what's her name? Derek Huff's sister, Julianne Huff.
Mm-hmm.
She had a meltdown on social media the other day. I don't follow her. I just saw this on the news because a few years ago she was, I mean, come on, read the fucking room. Who puts blackface on anymore? And
Right.
she did that on Halloween or some shit. And
Yeah.
like, she had a complete meltdown during some yoga class she was doing. And sure, I can sit here and talk shit about her, but at least she had the meltdown. At least
Yeah.
she realized what she did was wrong. And that's where I'm saying, not that I have a stance, I'm just saying right now in our discussion, you know, we got to let people come and admit the wrong
Mm-hmm.
instead of bashing people before they're able to even see what's happening or process what's happening on
Yeah.
all sides, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, so sort of to in this conversation, I wanted to sort of switch gears and just, someone had asked earlier in the previous interview, what projects can you talk about that are coming up, or what can you leave us with? And then what my last question will be after that, what is your dream for the world?
Okay.
Sub question.
I know, right? It's like the biggest question. Um, yeah, okay. So right now, I think you mentioned American Soul. Season 2 of American Soul just premiered at the end of May. So if you're, it's the story of Don Cornelius. It takes place in the 70s. It's centered around Soul Train. Um, if you're interested in that, check it out. It's on BET. I directed 2 episodes. I think I did 6 and 7 or 5 and 6. You'll just have to watch and see. I promise you, I forgot.
I know how crazy it is
Um,
that you get in
yeah,
a bubble. I don't even watch some of the episodes I've been in.
yeah.
Not on American Soul.
But it is a good season. It's a good show with some really phenomenal actors, and I'm really excited about my episode.
Oh no, you froze. Come back, Crystal. Where is she? Thank you guys for watching. Crystal's face is frozen. This is Quarantine But Cute. She's my buddy. She's a director, producer, and writer. And we've been talking for over And she just left. She'll probably come back on in just a second to say goodbye. Let us know where you guys are watching from. We were just raising money in the previous conversation for Young Black and Lit. It is an amazing organization that gives characters, Black characters specifically, Black characters in books to children for free, to youth. So we were trying to raise money for that. And, I've been using my platform just to talk to everybody over the last 13 weeks. And I love that one of my friends from college has been on for the last 2 hours chatting with us. Hopefully she'll join in just to say bye. But I may have to cut this off. I'm going to wait just a second. Oh, her phone died, so she's texting from the laptop. So I'm just going to say goodbye. Thank you for watching. We have some musical guests this Friday. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep sending love and kindness. Keep asking questions. And Black Lives Matter. Thank you for joining.